5 machines and gadgets sitting in your house right now were designed to kill people, guide missiles, or win a war. One was built to survive a beach landing. Another was rejected twice before anyone realized what it could do. One was engineered to replace rubber during a global shortage. One was built to feed an army that kept starving before it ever reached a battlefield. And one is currently orbiting the planet, guiding weapons more precise than anything before it. None of them were built for you. One of them right now is being used by about 6 billion people who've never thought about where it came from. So which one is it? Number 5. The tape holding together your air ducts, your car bumper, and possibly the plot of every movie where someone gets kidnapped. During World War II, the US military needed a way to seal ammunition cases so they'd stay dry during transport, and could be torn open fast in combat without tools. In 1943, a factory worker named Vesta Stout, who had 2 sons serving in the Navy, noticed that the paper tape used to seal ammo boxes was slow to open and tore unevenly under pressure. She didn't have a lab. She wrote directly to President Roosevelt, describing a cloth-backed, waterproof tape that could be ripped open by hand in seconds. The White House forwarded her letter to the War Production Board, and within weeks, Johnson & Johnson's Permacell division was manufacturing exactly that, a rubber adhesive tape backed with cotton duck fabric, waterproof enough to survive a beach landing. Soldiers started calling it duct tape for the fabric and because water rolled right off it. After the war, a salesman noticed people were using leftover military tape to seal home air ducts, and it got rebranded and recolored silver as duct tape. Vesta Stout never patented it and never made a cent from an invention that's now sold by the billion rolls a year. The accident wasn't the tape. It was that nobody with an engineering degree was annoyed enough to write to the president. Number 4 was invented twice by the same man and rejected twice before anyone realized what he actually had. In 1942, a chemist named Harry Coover was working for Eastman Kodak, trying to develop clear plastic gun sights for Allied rifles. He was testing a class of compounds called cyanoacrylates, and they were a disaster for the job. They stuck to absolutely everything they touched. Lab equipment, fingers, glass, instantly and permanently. Coover threw the formula out. Useless. 9 years later, in 1951, he was working on a heat-resistant jet canopy coating, and cyanoacrylates came up again, tested by one of his researchers almost by accident. This time, Coover actually looked at what he was holding, a substance that bonded instantly, needed no heat, no mixing, no clamping. What had ruined an experiment twice was, on its own, the product. Eastman Kodak launched it commercially in 1958 as Eastman 910. Its most unexpected use came a decade later in Vietnam, where military medics started using cyanoacrylate spray to seal open battlefield wounds in seconds, when there wasn't time to suture, stopping the bleeding long enough to get a soldier to surgery. The compound was rejected as a failure twice. It just took someone willing to ask why the failure kept happening. Number 3 came from a war that never actually used it. In 1943, with Japan controlling most of the world's rubber supply, the US War Production Board was desperate for a synthetic substitute, something to make tires, boots, and gaskets without natural rubber. At General Electric, an engineer named James Wright was mixing boric acid with silicone oil, trying to create exactly that. What he got instead stretched, bounced 20% higher than a rubber ball, and could copy newsprint straight off the page. It was completely useless as a rubber substitute. GE sent samples to engineers worldwide, and nobody could find a single industrial application for it. It sat unused for years until a marketing consultant named Peter Hodgson noticed it entertaining more adults at a party than any of the actual toys in the room. In 1950, he bought the manufacturing rights, put it inside a plastic egg, and named it Silly Putty. The military never used a single gram of it. The only battle it ever won was against boredom. Number 2 started as a cash prize, offered by a man who'd already conquered most of Europe and still couldn't feed his army. In 1795, Napoleon Bonaparte's government offered 12,000 francs to anyone who could solve one of warfare's oldest problems. Soldiers on long campaigns kept dying from spoiled food, long before they ever reached a battlefield. A French confectioner named Nicolas Appert spent over a decade experimenting and discovered that food sealed in an airtight glass jar and then boiled would stay preserved for months. He didn't know why it worked. Germ theory was still 60 years away. He just knew that it did. Appert won the prize in 1810. That same year, a British merchant named Peter Durand took the idea further, patenting a version sealed in tin-plated iron instead of glass, lighter, and far less likely to shatter on a ship or a battlefield. The Royal Navy adopted it almost immediately. Neither man could open his own invention easily. The can opener wasn't invented until decades later, so early soldiers were issued cans and told to open them with a bayonet or a rock. Napoleon just wanted his army fed. He accidentally invented the entire modern food supply chain. Number 1 wasn't built to help anyone find anything. It was built to end the world with better accuracy. During the Cold War, the US military needed to know the exact position of its submarines at all times, so that if they ever had to launch a nuclear missile, they'd know precisely where they were launching from. Because a targeting error of even a few hundred meters could mean the difference between hitting a target and starting a war for nothing. In 1973, the Department of Defense combined research from several existing satellite navigation programs into a single system, Navstar, the Global Positioning System. Over the next 2 decades, dozens of satellites were launched into orbit, each broadcasting a precise time signal that a receiver on the ground, or a submarine, or a missile could use to calculate its exact position, accurate to within meters. For years, GPS stayed almost entirely military. That changed in 1983 after Soviet forces shot down a Korean civilian airliner that had drifted into restricted airspace, killing everyone aboard. President Reagan opened GPS up for civilian use, so commercial planes would never again lose their way over hostile territory by accident. Today, more than 6 billion devices on the planet use it, for turn-by-turn directions, for food delivery, for finding your own phone in your own house. It was built to guide a nuclear missile to an exact coordinate. Now it mostly finds you a parking spot. 5 machines built for war. A tape meant to survive a beach landing, a glue that failed twice before anyone noticed what it could do, a rubber substitute that never touched a single tire, a preservation method built to feed an army, and a satellite system built to guide a nuclear missile. None of these were built with you in mind. Somebody just kept the thing that worked, long after the war that funded it was over. If there's a pattern here, it's that some of the most ordinary objects in your house were never really designed for peace. They were declassified. Next time, we go looking for the next question worth asking.